You are listening to WXRWLP Milwaukee on 104.1 FM and on riverwestradio.com everywhere. Now you can also listen by telling your smart speaker to play River West Radio. Support for this program comes from Collectivo Coffee, dedicated to keeping Milwaukee's bike riding community rolling with bike pumps, available for use in all Collectivo cafes. More info is available in cafes and at collectivocoffee.com. Cool. Great. It is a beautiful night if you're listening live in Milwaukee. Just great weather, sun, warmth. Thank you, listeners, for listening in to Cinema Fireside. It's kind of a trip because all of a sudden, you're playing the film music and you realize you're going to be on the air and you had better start talking, and you had better start talking quick and have something to say, whether it's relevant or not. There cannot be dead air. Paul Finger has left the house. He is an enigma to me, yet he is quite dynamic. He actually called me out of the blue. He has periodicals and so on and so forth from days gone by, and I have very specific interests, such as theater and cinema, and he had called me about the funnies, I think, and so we couldn't do business, but I did appreciate the call, and I said, hey, you do acting? And he said, yeah, because he's got... he's got a nice, he has a nice presence for film. So he's a good-looking guy, has character written across him. So he's a good guy. Exciting, but he has left the house. He usually does his business quickly and then proceeds back into the mysteries of his life. I want to thank my colleague for listening in on a Manhattan rooftop, and I hope you thoroughly enjoy the evening, and thank you so much for listening. And we went to Bayview Gallery night on Friday night, and usually there's Martin Hallinger. He's tweaking the faders. All right, kicking that up. I will actually kick my headphone volume down. Gabe, thank you for calling in. Gabe Van Handel, always appreciate that. Martin gives the thumbs up. It's so nice out here that so many people are out in River West. Many folks I haven't seen before. If you've never been to River West, it is quite colorful, of a whole variety of people, to say the least. And, just like any city, it can be very quiet or it can be very vibrant. It has its own psychological atmosphere, and because we have 4 full seasons, summer is very fleeting, and on evenings like this, many of the populace takes to the streets. So if you haven't been here, it can be quite interesting, and the foliage is very dense now. This is the height of its freshness in summer, and I'll tell you, I step out early in the morning with coffee, and it's always fun to select the proper coffee cup each and every morning, and I have dozens to choose from, and I realize that's a pretty cool thing to be having, are those nice, cozy coffee cups, and to be on the lookout for interesting ones on down the line. So anyway, when I step out, I embrace now the magisterial state of summer, and I realize, man, it's overcast. There's this breeze that is provoking the foliage in grand movement. I had better go and film this. So what I do is I set up the tripod and the camera and start filming all of the dense foliage for montage and opening credits. I have quite a stock library for montage and opening credits, and when I think of summer, I think about those trees, and you can always back reference to Michelangelo Antonioni's Blow Up, which, as you remember, takes place, some of it in a park with the rustle of the trees, and I have an acquaintance who told me that summertime in these parks and these trees remind him of Blow Up, and yes, that is definitely a reference. I love summer. I love all 4 seasons. Each one has its unique offering, and summer has, again, the mysteries of those country roads with overhanging trees, and you shoot that in telephoto, you're on the money. Then, of course, the twilight sun going through the foliage also makes for a really great effect as well. So there's lots to film for summer too. I mean, sun is for filming is only good during the magic hour. I mean, you can't shoot with the bright sunlight and the shadow together. That it's just really harsh. It doesn't look good. Cloudy days have that diffuse light, that even light, which is just perfect for filming. Not summer. The only time summer light is good is if it's for the actual effect, the juxtaposition of the light against the shade and so forth. But otherwise, you got to be cautious. And it is now getting to be the twilight, and the sun is becoming golden on the bricks and the trees and the sidewalks and so on and so forth. And so anyway, it's always good to walk several times a day, and we ended up walking down to the fair after the coffee shop after reading the art section in the New York Times, and for $1 whole, which was the budget, got 2 killer books at the fair. They were half off, 50 cents each for trade soft cover. I got a biography of Agatha Christie, and I got Michael Haig's. Let's see here. Hold on. Writing screenplays that sell by Michael Haig for all of 50 cents. So I just love going through books, having a highlighter, highlighting passages that are pertinent as reference, all good stuff. My oldest daughter is the festival producer of the Freeland Film Festival, which is occurring in a few weeks. And there is a website for the Freeland Film Festival. And I am one of the jurors, along with Carl Bogner and a couple others. And so, since my television, or this new television that someone gave me, smashed onto cement, like I say, it was very metaphorical. It was like, wow, it was like a life ending in a split second. And I was like, damn, I'm glad it's not a life and it's just a hunk of plastic. So there was a great lesson to be learned in that. So there was no tears or anything like that, just profound realization that life goes on in a television. Thank you, Kevin, for the offer. Definitely, I do appreciate it. And now it's in TV heaven. It's not really in TV heaven because to get to TV heaven is quite costly. I started calling around. I got like 5 analog sets to get rid of. And they're like, yeah, we'll take them. And they do it by the size, and the costs are astronomical. You could get about like a 7-foot TV for turning these other TVs in. So it's like, well, we're going to have to do some more research on how to get, unless somebody has like an art installation and needs these TVs, they can certainly have them, but some additional calls will have to be made to get them on their way. Like, as far as I know right now, getting to TV heaven is quite costly at this point. But we'll see. We're not losing sleep over that, I'll tell you that. No way. Also, Bayview Gallery night, Friday night, we went into the Voyager bookstore, and for next to nothing picked up the play The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. And what's significant about that is I have a actor acquaintance who was in that play, so that's what sparked that interest. And also recently have a hardcover of Gore Vidal's The Best Man, a political play. So after I finish a few more plays, I'll get to that as well. And it's great, Gabe, that you have called in. We'll talk to you shortly, my man. So anyway, yeah, so I'm a juror for the Freeland Film Festival. So I am actually watching those films on the editing computer, which has got a beautiful, vibrant screen. And so since I have new television at the moment, it just works perfectly because those films fill that gap just like that. And that is life. It's obviously to be lived. Each day is a gift, and then you got to think about, well, if I die today, can I be relatively satisfied? So yeah, you could look at it that way, as each day is this kind of like the entirety of a lifetime, kind of like a microcosm of the bigger picture as you are allowed many more days, hopefully. So that's all I can say, man. And Gabe, I just want to, give you a little bit of a countdown here that I'll be, if you don't mind, putting up here in seconds. Is that cool? Hey, Gabe, how you doing, my man?
Hey, Mark, what's happening?
Well, you just heard what's happening.
Super cool. Man, I'll tell you, Mark, these on fire, on point, steady, direct, lucid, very visual, very beautiful, very dreamlike, just these very pointed accounts of what's happening, and just these almost like memoir-esque. It's like listening to an audio book of someone's life, and it's like you check in every week, like almost like a blog turned into an audio book. And I'll tell you, Mark, if God forbid the day that you're ever gone,
it'll happen.
Those stacks of yellow legal pads and those archives, that's not just stuff that's just blowing in the wind or in the fan or the air conditioner. Those are accounts of writing. That's someone's life that was lived. And by God, I hope I hope maybe it even gets to be me, gets to go through that stuff someday.
Well, I'll have about 5 people that are heirs to that, but you can actually request of them, and I give you permission to look at them, Gabe.
Thank you. I'll tell you, Mark, just your account, it's anything but breezy, but I'll tell you, just your confidence with it just makes it very digestible. So thank you for that, man. And please say hi to Carl Bogner and give my best. And it's super cool. I'm glad every once in a while, you get to be, you're selected as a juror or as a judge or a head of a festival. And that's not, that's no small fry, and that's for good reason. You've earned it. You deserve it. So super cool stuff there, man. These are not just whimsy accolades. I mean that. So cool stuff, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So yeah, life goes on. It's summer. The weather changes, and there's of course, there's books to be read. There's movies to be watched. I'll say it. There's even TV shows that must be watched. I try to avoid TV shows as much as possible, but there are times where I'll be reading about shows in the New York Times, and there's certain publications that if they point out that these shows are worthwhile, these are great works of cinema put to television, that these are worthwhile stories, directed well, done with art, with artistry, with great acting, with great writing. These are everything. This is everything that we love about great films and filmmaking, but just in that extended formula, that's extended medium. And what I love especially is the mini-series, because it's not like this endless tagging along like I'm a dog on a leash where it's like, okay, this is still worthwhile, but these are hours, these are days, these are weeks of my life that I've given to these single characters. And there are exceptions. There are shows that have run in their lengthy entirety that I feel, without any hesitation, are totally worthwhile to watch for any film fanatic. Mad Men, Breaking Bad, and these are just more contemporary examples within the last 10 years. Deadwood. But the more extreme examples are these mini-series that AMC does, like The Night Manager. Some of these shows are only 4 episodes, so they get to be more cinematic. They put more time into the cinematography and into them being extended films. Todd Haynes did a more true adaptation of Mildred Pierce a number of years ago with Kate Winslet, which was just, very Douglas Sirkian, postmodern Douglas Sirkian, which is his style, to be sure. But The Night Of is probably if not the ultimate miniseries. I don't know what is. If there is a TV show or a miniseries that can do a better job of showing what cinema and filmmaking is capable of than that miniseries or that show, I would love to hear about it and watch it, because I remember just being in the enthralled grips of that miniseries and actually being emotionally like moved and touched and hurt when it was over, because I thought, man, I don't get to watch this anymore. I so rarely feel that way about a show or even a great one. I'm like, okay, getting back to documentaries, getting back to what I really am enthralled about: cinema, films, new characters, new ideas, new filmmakers, jumping all over the place. But once in a while, you just get that super cool, just perfectly executed television show or miniseries. But having finished The Terror the other night, I did feel that usual sense of, and it's time to move on. As much as that show is a grandiose, absurd, and I use the word absurd very, very, very directly, it's surreal, it's bizarre, it's beautiful, it's strange, and it's absolutely worthwhile. At the end of it, I thought, okay, I gave the show 5 hours of my life, 5.5 hours of my life. It's time to get back to work here. So I did. I watched the French horror film thriller, just aptly titled Revenge, which exists in the canon of feminist revenge flicks that was, comes into resurgence every, I'd say, about 7 or 8 years. It just follows the trends of any society and any culture, about 6, 7, 8 year cycles. And, the original and the great female revenge exploitation film, I Spit on Your Grave, directed by Mir Zarchi from 1978, is a film that I don't want to revisit because my memories of it are so pleasant and so plentiful that I think if I revisited it, most of them would be shot down or would be removed by the difference between the ages that I watched it originally when I was a teenager, multiple times on this really crisp Anchor Bay, high-definition VHS, widescreen, gorgeous transfer. And, what I would come away with now, and ultimately what the difference between my memories of certain shots, certain angles, certain scenes, and what in the sobering additions of age, what I would see today. So there are some films that are just better left unturned, better left in your memory. But Revenge is a solid, entertaining, and totally stupid and totally dumb, but great horror exploitation revenge thriller. It was partially produced by Shudder, which is a horror film streaming service available online, which caters specifically to horror films and oftentimes to the discerning horror film aficionado. So people that are more into Japanese horror, especially stuff contemporary and classical, which falls much more on the avant-garde and the high art spectrum, the German expressionist side. So they cater to a film audience that doesn't just want to watch Friday the 13th, 1 through 7. And I've done lengthy asides on this show about those films. That's a bad example. But I would say just disposable horror sequels upon disposable straight-to-video zombie thrillers. Using the word thriller is actually a disgrace to that word, just these throwaway, awful films. But I'll tell you, Revenge gave me what I wanted. Watching it as an adult, and a sober adult at that, and just taking in all the elements and all the devices, I'm just like, yeah, this is a horror film. This is stupid. This is illogical. But man, the thrill of the filmmaking, the confidence of the film, of that voice. There's an auteur at work there. I cannot remember. I did not write down the name of the director, but she is a confident, new, noteworthy talent. And when I remember her name, I will share it on the show next week, because the visual environment of that film is very sure-footed. I was very impressed by the mood, the atmosphere, and the dire straits that the film put the viewer into. Now, you have to set aside logic when you watch a film like this, but man, there are moments when I was just enthralled, bemusedly enthralled, because this is a stupid movie. I was oftentimes looking over at my girlfriend, who is more of a logical film viewer than I am, and she'll just say, and she, in her sort of survivalist, she knows how to take cars apart and put them back together. She knows how to fix lawnmowers, tear them apart, put them back together. She can fix things in our house that I can't. She knows more about plumbing, electrical work. et cetera, how to fix a broken window, how to take care of, she was a nurse. She was a nurse, too, for about 12 years. So there's a lot of things about physiology and about the practicality, and she also loves the wilderness. So there are things about when characters and people are put into these, extreme places and situations involving technology, involving circumstance, involving time, involving the elements. Like how long would this person be able to survive in the sun in an open wilderness without this much water, without that much food, on a terrain like that? What would the temperature be like? How much blood have they lost? What would what would their vital signs be? And also, would a car actually start under that environment? She is much more of that's not possible at all, especially when a film is going for realism or is not going for it's just a movie vibe. So oftentimes during the movie, I would look over at her when it's just one stupid, illogical moment after another, and she would go, "It doesn't matter." And she just said to me like 2 or 3 times, "Doesn't matter in a film like this." Super cool to hear someone say that, where I was sort of, where I'm usually the one that chimes in with that phrase, where she was the one leading the argument. No, this is a weird, feminist, bad, I don't want to say that. This is just an enthralling, cool, all the words that I'm trying to use here end with a form of the word Heine. So I don't want to say that on the air, but it's just awesome, butt-kicking stuff. So super cool there. I recommend it for anyone that's into those kind of horror films and wants a slightly smarter, more well-shot product. I did manage to get to the theater to go see RBG, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg movie. It's sort of run-of-the-mill, sort of average, typical CNN Films produced it, directed it. Nothing you wouldn't expect to see on CNN, the network, when they do their documentary series, produced exactly the same way. If a little more worthwhile, just for the fact that it's about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is a personal hero of mine, right up there along with my other favorite feminist heroes of history. Emily Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, among many others, including Gloria Steinem, Kate Millett, and on and on and on. But man, Ruth Bader, just the lack of sentimentality in her eyes and in her face. I don't know that what I found interesting and entertaining about the film was what the filmmakers were striving for, because it's such an unarty film that what I was forced to look at, because there's just nothing really attractive on the frame. There's no daring choices. There's nothing really original about the filmmaking, and that's kind of, I think, the whole point. It's more of a work of journalism. But what I was drawn to is the character that Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself is, and just an incredible work of the human race she has become. And her story is, it's a typical documentary story, but she herself as a human being, I so admire that I couldn't help being moved by the film. I couldn't help but be enthralled by the film. If I was a little bit disappointed at myself for being as easily drawn into the traps as I was, still a wonderful viewing experience for those reasons nonetheless. So, if you dig Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or if you just dig a history of looking at the Supreme Court in the latter half of the 20th century, it's a must-see. I also got to recommend a book and a podcast, which, as I was walking out of the theater, there were a pair of women that were behind me, that both of which brought up the two items that I kept thinking of during the film. And I ended up having a wonderful conversation with them for about 30 minutes. And, it was one of those great, intelligent, thoughtful conversations where you're never going to forget it, but you never even exchange what your names are. It's not necessary. It's not needed. You're going to remember each other, and if you ever see each other again, names will be exchanged then. But just that sort of efficient, curt exchange of three like-minded people. One of them brought up the Book of the Nine, which was written, I believe, about 7 or 8 years ago, it was about the history of the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court as it stood at that time. Very interesting read, highly recommended. And the podcast More Perfect, which is basically an extension of the show Radiolab, which is, I say this cautiously, but it's possibly NPR and 8 p.m.'s best radio show. To say what their best radio show is like just saying like, oh, that's the best leaf on that tree. But, Radio Lab, This American Life, among many others, they just, the quality of the programming that they do, regardless of your political affiliation, cannot be denied that there's just some supreme intellectual content going on there and entertainment. But they have a secondary show. Radio Lab has a secondary show that they do called More Perfect. They've done 2 seasons of it. They're working on the 3rd. I am eagerly awaiting it. It's addictive. It's brilliant. It's engaging. It's even a little more entertaining than Radio Lab because you know what you're getting with each episode. It's going to be something about a landmark Supreme Court case, et cetera, et cetera. So for fans of stuff like that, also much recommended. I did get around to watching Early Man, which is Aardman Studios' latest stop-motion animation film, which was, it's the British studio that produced the Wallace and Gromit shorts and the Wallace and Gromit film, which is one of the best animated films I've ever seen. I wish I could say as much for Early Man. I was bored. I was tired. I wasn't tired at the time, but I was tired of the film, more than tired of the film by the time it was over. Unoriginal, uninspired, unfunny. It just goes on and on and on, and there just isn't enough action in the film. There isn't enough beauty. There just isn't enough of the gorgeosity that usually fills their films, these gorgeous palettes, these backgrounds, these settings, these scenes, just these props, these set pieces. There just wasn't enough of what I come to expect from them, and it was just a boring film. But still a very fine, well-made film, I guess, for a certain audience. But I think by any standards, fans of Aardman Studios or any stop-motion animation would have been a little bit disappointed by this film. Not great. But, I started a couple of other film texts recently, which, it's like Mark says, he's always starting, finishing in the middle of hundreds of books. But I have made a commitment to I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle, and I cannot remember exactly what her last name is. I don't have the book with me, but her last name starts with an M as well, and I'm about halfway through the book. I've just been diving into it. I cannot stop reading this book. It's a work of true crime fiction as written by Patton Oswalt's late wife, and it's about the hunt for the Golden State Killer, which was posthumously discovered based on research that was done for this book that she had ignited. And also with the release of this book, there was other work that was ignited in the Justice Department and outside of it, and they caught the guy based on the resurfacing of evidence that she examined and the resurgence of interest in the material based on her website and her blog and her numerous articles for publications over the years. So super cool stuff there. It's, and the fact that she is not a pulpy writer, she spends these long asides going into the motivations of small characters. She examines every single crime tied to the Golden State Killer, examines all the participants in it, and almost goes into these short stories of examining where these people were at the time and where they're at now, the effect of the crime, the effect of the investigation. But she really examines who these people were and where they were at in their lives at the time. And the way she sculpts these characters is better than most fiction that I read. And she just has this exquisitely straightforward and unpretentious way of portraying people that just is so deliciously readable. I almost can't stand it at times. I hate to have to stop reading it because it's engaging, it's enlightening, because it's so refreshing to read a piece of nonfiction and true crime nonfiction that avoids so many of the traps, the boring, lengthy procedural traps, and the overly sentimental traps of a lot of true crime fiction. She's determined to stay unengaged as a character herself until she is a character herself. And when she writes about things from her perspective, it's pointedly abstract and pointedly other. She looks at herself through this almost third-person lens at times, but she avoids that most of the time. And then when she's writing about herself in this almost memoir sense, she writes about herself in the first person. So it changes tenses throughout, and it I wouldn't say it's off-putting. Normally that would be off-putting, but she has such confidence and assurance as a writer, and the material is just so well researched and so thoroughly constructed and put together that I can find few complaints or criticisms about this book. It's going to be made into a mini-series for HBO soon, and I eagerly await watching that. Making Movies by Sidney Lumet, which, what can I say? It's a book about making movies by one of the great directors. I'll be reporting in on that again in the future.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was reading that as well, so I'm going to get back to that. I'll put that in my memory bank, so thanks for bringing that up, Gabe.
Oh, absolutely. Also, just picked up from the library, and definitely probably going to be renewed about 10 or 15 times until I can finish it. Conversations with the Great Movie Makers of Hollywood's Golden Age at the American Film Institute by George Stevens Jr. Just that title alone, how, if you're a movie fan and you're a fan of, filmmaking, and especially filmmaking from that era, I mean, I'm just going through here and looking at the contents of the subjects that he interviews. Raoul Walsh, King Vidor, Fritz Lang, Frank Capra, Howard Hawks, Mervyn LeRoy, William Wyler, George Stevens, his father, Alfred Hitchcock, George Cukor, Billy Wilder, John Huston, Elia Kazan, Fred Zinnemann, David Lean, Robert Wise, Ernest Lehman, Gene Kelly, Stanley Kramer, Richard Brooks, Jean Renoir, Federico Fellini, Ingmar Bergman, and Satyajit, I can never pronounce his first name, Satyajit Ray, the Indian filmmaker.
Yeah, he's got that Apu trilogy. I've got all three, I believe, on VHS.
Great films and a great filmmaker. Well, I would say the second and the third film, I would say, are great films. The first film, Panther Panchali, is almost charming in its amateurishness at times, but it's still just another work of a master filmmaker. I guess knowing the filmmaker that he would become with the latter two films, it makes that first film seem a little lesser, but looking at it as its own individual work of art, it's still just a stunning, great, powerful. It's one of the great sentimental films I've actually ever seen. So super cool stuff there. But yeah, there's never a shortage of great books about movies to read from any era. So if you're really interested in films and how they're constructed, why they're constructed, and their lasting impact on who we are as human beings, I just can't encourage people enough to read about the movies that they're passionate about. It just offers an endless trove of rewards. And of course, just like books that we're always in the middle of, there's a number of films that I'm always in the middle of. So currently I'm in the middle of Hitchcock's 7852, which is about the construction of the shower scene, which I have very mixed opinions about, but as a work of nonfiction, it's delicious. It's about the shower scene. What more can I say? And I'm about halfway.
What book is that, Gabe? Which one is that?
That's a film.
Oh,
that's
yeah. Because actually, I read Stephen Rabella's The Making of Psycho, which extensively covers that scene.
That film, that documentary, which is called Hitchcock 7852. It's called Hitchcock 78/52, but you could call it Hitchcock 7852. Is based on David Thompson's book about the shower scene. And
it's about it's like I read that book as well. On the now I forgot what it's called, but yeah, it's a shorter tome by David Thompson. Yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, I have not read that, but I eagerly look forward to getting to that and in the future decades. And of course, I fell asleep in the middle of, but I plan on finishing Sidney Lumet's Murder on the Orient Express from 1974, I want to say, mostly as a revolt against Kenneth Branagh's latest film. But what I'm going to do is watch the three main versions of the film that seem to would be considered the three most popular versions. There's one from the early 1930s. It's either from 1932 or 1934. And then there's Sidney Lumet's version from 74, which...
Wait, have you seen the one from the 30s?
No, I haven't.
I'll look forward to seeing that, my man.
Oh, absolutely. And then Kenneth Branagh made his version
Right.
last year, which I have very little enthusiasm for.
Why? Have you seen it?
No, for various reasons, I have little enthusiasm for it. I love Kenneth Branagh in his prime. We are not discussing it. Kenneth Branagh, as a contemporary filmmaker, is no longer in his prime, has not been in his prime for a long time, for various reasons. I think a lot of them having to do with commerce and money. But Kenneth, something has changed with the Kenneth Branagh that we once knew, and he has vanished. And what we are left with is the person with the same intelligence that used to be there, that is no longer capable of creating the magic that the Kenneth Branagh we once knew could summon. And it has nothing to do with age or with changing mores. It has nothing to do with perception. It's just that he has changed. Something has happened, and Kenneth Branagh no longer is Kenneth Branagh.
But we have what we have, and that's a good thing as well.
Thank you.
There's some
documentary with Kenneth films.
Branagh about making one of his Shakespeare plays that I've written it down, but I'd like to revisit that again. And I think it's in the early '90s or so, but we'll see.
Yep. Well, he's made many great films. There's Henry V, and his Hamlet from '96 is just I don't know if tremendous is the right word. It's just laborious is not the right word. It's just very thick and heavy and dense and wonderful. I saw it when I was very young, and I knew that I was watching a great film by a great filmmaker. It's one of the great adaptations of Hamlet, among many. I would say that even the version from 1990, directed by Zeffirelli, is even great. As contested as that version is, it's stark and it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And Mel Gibson as the lead is a brilliant subversive choice, because he's not necessarily an actor that has the gusto. No, actually, that's not a correct statement at all. He's not the actor that has the refinement to pull off a nuanced Hamlet, but he has the gusto to sort of have an inverse conviction of it. So he has the wild, unhinged quality that's, I'd say, about 15 to 25% of what that performance is, depending on which company is doing it and depending on what era it's coming out of from that company. But Gibson largely misses the more subtle nuances of that play and of that performance, but still wildly entertaining because it's just so unhinged and left field. And it's amazing that a studio like Warner Brothers put that film out in 1990. But getting back to Kenneth Branagh, he's had a long storied career, and now he makes mainstream, big budget, blockbuster Hollywood films. He directed Thor in 2012, which is actually probably of the recent slate of the more Hollywood movies that he's made, that's the one that I would say has the most artistry and the most genuine passion behind it. Of the original Marvel Avengers films that came out, that was the one that I think actually has the most Shakespearean conviction. No small coincidence there, Kenneth Branagh being one of the great Shakespearean actors and one of the great Shakespearean theater directors of his generation. So translating that sort of mythos and pathos to a slightly less original or important work like the film adaptation of Thor that sets up the character for the biggest blockbuster franchise in film history, he did a pretty good job. And he made a pretty interesting, pretty thoughtful, and pretty nuanced film, which is a strange thing considering that this is, it was a film made by Disney. It's a Disney film, loudly and clearly it's a Disney film, but it's full of these small, irreverent and beautiful moments that require finesse, acting, skill, art and just a sensibility of wonder. That was the last time that I've seen the old Branagh come through in directing, and I think a fair amount of that had to do with the fact that he's working with an accomplished cast and crew: Natalie Portman, Stellan Skarsgård, Chris Hemsworth, et cetera, et cetera. So he's dealing with really experienced, great actors there. So I guess all the praise cannot be lavished upon Branagh there. But his 2014, I can't remember if it was 14 or 15, Cinderella, is again a film that's rooted in being an intelligent product of a big studio, but that largely fails. He also made an adaptation of a Jack Ryan. He tried to turn the Harrison Ford Jack Ryan franchise into an updated version of itself with Chris Pine as the character Jack Ryan, which Tom Clancy had written about extensively in the 80s and 90s, but that film never took off, and it's just a frankly lousy film. He's just made a couple of other stinkers in the time being. And Murder on the Orient Express, from what I would expect from Branagh, the contemporary Branagh, and what I read, if I had read glowing or even mildly enthusiastic or entertaining reviews from a wide array of film critics saying, here's a film that Kenneth Branagh directed that's worth seeing, I would have gone to see it in a second. Kenneth Branagh is, at his best, is one of the great filmmakers. At his worst, he's a boring filmmaker with lots to almost look at that his bad products are just so filled with mountains of unnecessariness that they're worse than a bad film where you can just laugh at it or you can just discard it or forget about it. He puts so much content that the film itself, the fact that he does not realize that the product he's making is bad or that this isn't working, and maybe he does, and he just has to continue, because when you're making a film and you're making movies for 20th Century Fox or Disney, even if it's not working, that film is still going to come out. This is going to happen. So nothing about the trailers for Murder on the Orient Express, nothing about what I read about it and what made me enthusiastic to watch it. But
well, you know what I think is that we should both investigate ultimately the 30s version of Murder on the Orient Express, because it sounds like a very cozy, charming film to take us back to the days of yesteryear. What do you think, Gabe?
Well, movies about trains from the 1930s were more prominent because trains.
You're not thinking
about
Strangers on a Train, are you?
Oh, from 51?
Hitchcock.
That's a great film. But trains as a metaphor and as a narrative device and as just a visual means of action in a film was much more commonly used in the 20s, 30s, and again in the 50s it sort of came up. But Shanghai Express from 32, which was the top-grossing film of 1932, and one of von Sternberg's best films that he made with Marlene Dietrich, is a top-notch example of the way that trains can be utilized on film in this very, very beautiful, mystical, and just downright entertaining and engaging way. But yeah, Mark, you and we're going to watch Murder on the Orient Express from 34.
That would be cool.
I'm going to finish Murder on the Orient Express from 1974 because it's made by Sidney Lumet, and that just right there means I got to watch it. And then after that, I will cozily and very half-heartedly make myself watch Murder on the Orient Express 2017 by Kenneth Branagh.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure that's a very slick, refined production, and I look forward to that as well. Like I said, there, all of this stuff has to be, put into the memory banks and then revisited when the time is right, for sure. Absolutely.
Excuse me. So I just wanted to highlight something else too. I know I've brought up before some film podcasts that are worth mentioning, but I just want to re-mention that You Must Remember This is just the best podcast I listen to. Karina
who does
Longworth,
that?
Pardon? It's this woman, Karina Longworth.
Right. Okay, gotcha. She did the Manson series.
Yes. she's a film historian. She's entertaining, she's energetic, she's modern, and she does her research. And then she does more research, and then she does even more research, and then she backs it up with even more. And she puts her own twist on it. Every episode that you listen to is like reading a full-fledged, very personal book. So it's very modern. It has the stamp of her impressions on it. There are tons of asides where she gives her own personal recollections of things, and she gives her own stamp of her experience with things, or her opinion, but she stays on focus very clearly, and she's just very adroit, very intelligent, and she's a great example of sort of the postmodern film critic, which by all standards, that's a bad term, would be the modern film critic, because the use of postmodern sort of gonzo writing that's just contemporary. That's the new wave of film criticism. So she's a very modern film blogger, film writer, film historian. She's working on, I believe, 2 or 3 different books right now, because after 4 or 5 seasons of this show, she has it's either the most or the second most listened to film and entertainment podcast. And she's married to Ryan Johnson, who's one of the most prolific and most successful Hollywood independent filmmakers that have crossed over to Hollywood. He directed The Last Jedi and is currently in the process of making several other films which run that border between independent-minded auteur and big Hollywood film produced by, backed by hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think Karina Longworth has a pretty good life, and I'm very happy for her. She deserves her success. I eagerly await the next season of her show. She's one of the great voices in my life, and if I would ever get the chance to meet her, I would just be more than humbled. She is just super cool. The other film podcast that I really have to point out is The Rewatchables, which I'm a late comer to. Bill Simmons, who is one of the great podcasters, one of the great sports writers and thinkers and cultural thinkers of our time. I wouldn't say great in the fact that he's like some Zizek or some thought-provoking philosopher that's changing the way that we look at our realities. But he's very engaging, he's very funny, and he's pointed in a way that reasserts things that the common man is thinking but does not articulate and is not able to figure out how to articulate in the simplest terms and the most direct and accurate terms possible, both subjectively and objectively. That's a reason why Bill Simmons is one of the great sports writers and sports thinkers of our time, because he cuts through the crap. And he's funny, he's likable, and he's Bill Simmons. There's not much else I can say about that. Not only does he understand sports, he understands television, he understands music, and he loves films. And he's not just a guy that wants to talk about how great Braveheart is, or how great Gladiator is, or how great Dances with Wolves is, and on and on. These dad films that have won best. Actually, come to think of it, all 3 of those films have won Best Picture. My God,
dude, Gabe, you're a man on fire, my man. What can you and I talk about? Let's say this is like live. We're in the present time. You and I, now we've hung out face to face many times. You've lived here, and now obviously you're in farther west of us. And
okay,
what can we talk about?
Mark, you've always been a great friend of mine, and I really appreciate it.
Okay, that's one sentence.
Mark, you have always strived for greatness,
yes.
and I thoroughly think that it's. I think that your feats and I think that your dedication are completely worthwhile, and you should strive and fight. Now, we'd probably be sitting in a coffee shop.
Well, dude, yeah. What I'm saying is that
you and I would probably be talking about what we're talking about, Mark. Some movie that's in the theater that I was surprised by how great it was, or by some small thing in a bad film that I was surprised by. or how bad a movie like Faces Places surprisingly is.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly overrated for sure. I don't.
Overrated is a kind statement.
Yeah, no, it's actually highly overrated. With Agnes Varda, my interest with her, her second film is very, very enjoyable, very enlightening about the city.
She's a great filmmaker. There's no denying it. She's one of the great filmmakers. I'd put her on any list of the 100 greatest filmmakers of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but Faces Places not great.
From the late '60s and early '70s in California that she made that I'm interested in. I don't know if we would talk so much about films. I don't know if I just spend that amount of time talking about
Mark,
other people's works. In real reality.
Well, Mark, usually you and I talk about things like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Right, and which I may add, which I may add, that is exactly what I had before the show. Half a tomato and an organic peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Yeah,
Mark, I love what I'm
partner
hearing.
had the sense to actually, I wasn't paying attention, but to pick up organic peanut butter and jelly, which I just was not into at the time of its purchase. But boy, and right into here and now, man, I'm like, man, thank you God for that. It is delicious. In fact, I was even dreaming of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in real life, which I did do, man.
Well, I'll tell you, sandwiches can be more nutritious than we're led to believe if you just accrue them with vegetables and fruit. Like, if you're going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, what I try and do is minimize the peanut butter, like get that good, thin, but still, like, creamy layer, and get a quality organic peanut butter. Spend a little more on it. You won't regret it. It's actually better for you. It's more nutritious. And it's going to give you more stamina, and it's a more quality, less processed product. Buy high quality organic. I guess they don't have to be organic, but they're going to be organic just by the very nature of the fact that they're more expensive. Buy a higher quality, more expensive preserves. They're going to taste better. They're going to be more nutritious. They're going to be fresh. You're going to like the sandwich more. And if you want, put fresh fruit on that sandwich. We're in berry season right now. Strawberries, blueberries, put some mango on there, put some any kind of cacophony of fruit, apple slices, fresh sliced apple slices. Put any sort of fruit on there. You're not going to regret it. It beefs up like a really boring, ordinary peanut butter and jelly, and it gives you just a wider array of nutrients, and it's going to taste better. You're going to feel better about it. And in terms of like just a sandwich, if you're going to get processed meat, you're going to get processed meat, but, fresh sliced or something that's organic that doesn't have all those nitrates in it, going to make you feel better if you eat that stuff regularly. Higher quality cheese, throw some onions on there, throw some fresh romaine on there. You get your magnesium and your calcium and your vitamin A. Throw some dark greens on there. I don't know. Some people are into kale. Some people are into, spring mix, spring greens. That's going to get more vitamins in your body and you're going to feel better.
Wow.
I don't know, throw some cherry tomatoes on there, throw some cucumbers on there, throw some peppers on there, as many colors as you can, because that's going to give you different antioxidants and different vitamins. That's what gives fruits their different colors, are the different vitamins that are in there. So throw some red peppers, throw some yellow peppers, throw some green, some orange. I don't know, cook some sweet potatoes once in a while. Put lime juice on more items than you would normally. We're in fruit season here. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Go to the farmer's market.
Okay, dude, that I think I agree on all points. And also, Gabe, I want to wish you a very, very, very wonderful evening.
Yes, Mark. And if by some chance you do get to watch Michael Clayton by next week,
right,
I would be very excited. I'm curious because, on the one hand, Michael Clayton is a corporate film about the evils of corporate America, but there are so many qualities to that film that, having thought about it over the years, there's just moments in that film that are just as like post Aaron Sorkin perfect as a Hollywood movie can get. It's just so manufactured, so phony, but so pointed and poignant and perfect in the same way.
Okay, well, like I said, I saw it, and all I can remember is that they stopped at an airport in Milwaukee. But I will when given the opportunity, though, that I will rewatch it and give a more of an analysis than that brief quip.
I would love it, Mark. And to be honest, if you dislike the film, I would love it even more.
No. I found favor with it. So do not lose sleep over anything negative about it. All right, my man.
Oh, I will not, Mark.
Okay.
I always look forward to your opinion and your analysis. Always good stuff. So, to our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in and listening to digressions about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and nutrients. It's been a while since I've gone on something like that, but that's what we do. Mark, as
Gabe.
always, keep up the great work. Thank you. Great stuff, Mark. I really appreciate it. I don't know. I love doing this show, and I love having it sneak around the corner on Mondays every week. It's just such a part of my life. I don't know what I'd do without it sometimes.
Amen.
So, all right. We'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe. Have a great night, my man. And I do appreciate Gabe's presence, man, because I just do not have that extemporaneous wherewithal that Gabe has. He's a man on fire, and there ain't no one there to put him out. So, yeah. Definitely, man. But I will say this. This week's Shepherd Express, which is about to go off to stands probably tomorrow or the next day, they do have a synopsis of the Village Playhouse One-Act Festival, which I'm very honored. I think there's like 5 of us this year that got in, and one of my plays was one of them. So if you have this week's Shepherd Express or pick one up before it goes off to stands, you can read about that. It plays the first half of this month at the Village Playhouse, and in this week's Shepherd Express, which is still on the stands before it gets replaced on Tuesday or Wednesday, you can check out a piece on the One-Act Festival. So I will try to. I know that Shakespeare in Shorewood is right around the corner. So I know what I'm doing this weekend, and there's Locust Street Festival as well, which is thoroughly entertaining. And I think that's I don't want to say what day it is this weekend because I really don't know. I mean, I'm looking at a flyer, right, the backside of a flyer right now. So when I leave, I can certainly see if it's on Saturday or Sunday. And, it's turned if you're listening live, it's turned overcast now. It almost looks like it's going to rain. It's very cozy. Maybe do a little reading tonight, see if I'm inspired. I got to be awake to do editing. We'll see about that as well, how that will pan out. And then select radio drama, maybe CBS Radio Mystery Theater, which it's just great, man. You just like fall asleep and go into that vortex of darkness, man, and attempt to get that rest that you need. I want to thank my colleague in Manhattan for everything. Very cool, dynamic, smart, caring person, undoubtedly. I want to thank all the listeners and all the good people that just keeps everything going. And it's into that cozy night. We will be on at the same time next week on WXRW LP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/shows and click Cinema Fireside.